Inteligentes. Kevin, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank
Thank you
you.
very much. Let's
All
go.
right. Well, let me share my screen and we'll get things rolling here. Okay. Okay. There we go. So I want to start out by just thanking everyone for the invitation to join you today and to share some of the insights and some of the things that we get to study every day. And before I start there, I want to just say to all the students out there that I studied political science and economics. That was my background. Now, I know my parents and everyone else would say, why are you studying liberal arts? What are you going to do when you graduate? Well, I went into technology and I spent probably 20 plus years doing nothing but technology before I started in my new career position at the time as a futurist and somebody that would speak around the world on emerging technologies in the future. And today I find I'm studying economics and political science all day long. So there's hope for all you liberal arts students out there. So today we're going to be talking about rehearsing the future and we're going to be focused in on smart cities. And there's three words we're going to cover over and over again today. And that is learn, unlearn, and relearn, because this is absolutely a requirement for each one of us going forward. The pace of change is just too big. So we're going to really take a deep dive into some of these topics today. So we're going to have our brains warmed up. So to start out with, I'm going to show you some memes and think through what does that mean about the future. And we're going to start by looking at the past. So we're going to look at some caveman memes here. And let's start with a history. The history of innovation. One of the first innovations out there was fire. So, which one of you invented controlled fire? Okay, that's one of the first innovations. Let's move forward. If we start counting on an abacus, what will we do with our fingers? Okay, because they were counting on fingers before. So, people have been concerned about technology for a long time. What happens if this natural intelligence starts taking our jobs away? So, again, as well as other things, people have been worried that intelligence was going to remove them from their job potential in the future. I'm developing a few jokes about the future of humans in the workforce, but none of them seem to work. Again, people have been concerned about jobs, and rightly so, when it comes to AI and what might happen in the future. Still warming up here. Perhaps someday you'll even send robots off to work and you'll get their paychecks. Don't forget your chat GPT. We don't want anyone knows what happens when AI stops cooperating with us. It's a legitimate question we'll all ask. Am I allowed to ask where the future is taking me? And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to ask a lot of questions. Where is the future taking me? So, thank you for allowing me to share some of those silly memes to get our minds warmed up. But so I'm a futurist. I'm Kevin Benedict, a futurist. I've been in this role for 15 years, five of the last years here at TCS. And as part of TCS, we often get asked by our clients all kinds of questions about the future. And we dig deep into researching the answers so we can share those as well. And the rapid pace of change has really created changes in the operating environment that all businesses and organizations are experiencing right now. If you look to the left of this scene, those are the various domains that are being impacted by everything that's happening in the world right now. And it's creating an operating environment for our clients that is fast-paced, uncertain, complex, unexpected, unpredictable, and volatile. And this is really forcing companies then to start asking themselves a whole series of really challenging questions. Today, though, we're going to be focused on the top one here. What is the future of my industry and business? What's happening there? And our target is going to be the smart cities themselves. And to get started, we always find it really helpful to start by going backwards, because the further backward you look, the further forward you can see, because you can recognize patterns, things that have happened in the past that are similar to things happening now. And we'll talk about a bunch of those going forward today. So, to start out with, my wife and I were remodeling a home. And to remodel, we have carpenters come in and they have tool belts with tape measures, with hammers, with nails, with drills, with saws, kind of the traditional carpenter environment. But what's so interesting is that going forward, as we're all going to learn, those might not be the tools of the future. And we can see that. I don't think you can hear the sound in the background, but today buildings are being built in different ways. They're being built in a manufacturing environment and delivered to a job site, stacked as the children's toys Legos are stacked. And instead of nails and hammers and saws, you see things like computers and lasers and robots building the houses of tomorrow. And they're being built in a holistic way where the whole system supports each other. So this is an example, picking it up, stacking it in, dropping the floors in place, which you'll see here coming up next, plugging it together, and with days, you can have an entire cities put together. And robots are driving a lot of that. So that's one of those environments where if you were just a traditional carpenter, you are going to have to learn the traditional way, but then you're going to have to unlearn that and relearn the new ways. And there's a lot of that happening out there. So, what does history tell us about the future? And we spend a lot of time studying that. So let's first look at this image right here. This is human population growth since 1 AD, the first century. Watch how the population grew or didn't grow over the centuries. And then we'll come back and talk about what we've learned here. Each of those yellow dots represents an additional million people. As you can see here, there's not much growth in the human population for many, many centuries, over a millennia. The growth in population happened all in just the last couple hundred years. So you can see nothing happened for a long time, and then everything happened at the end. Let's take a look at another one. If we go back and look at the history of life expectancy, for most of history, we were lucky as humans to live past 30. We were lucky to have children before we died for most of human history. It only changed in the last 150 years. When we look at the historic GDP, so gross domestic product per capita, so by individuals, people made almost no money until the last 150 years. It was a barter system. It was subsistent living, subsistent farming, almost no income, no wealth accumulation. We look at education, and education really just started in a democratized environment where the general populace could be educated, only started in the last couple of hundred years. In all of history, only a handful of people were getting educated in any one year. We look at 1880. Really, before then, you didn't have electric lights, you didn't have an electric grid, you didn't have telephone adoption, and there was no indoor plumbing. until right around 1880. So again, all of human history, you didn't have those, then suddenly you did. Also, you didn't have the ability to share information widely around the world. It just didn't exist. Telegraphs came around 1840. And then when there was telegraphs, you could then send news so everybody could share in the morning over a cup of coffee, they could share the same news. Before then, you would get news from last year. It would work its way around through shipping ports and things. So again, nothing happened for most of human history until the last 200 years when it comes to information exchange. If we look at innovation, I looked at the top 71 innovations over time, starting with the first century to today. And as you can see there were very few innovations or inventions that really changed human history until just the last 200 years. So really, the questions that we're all asking is why? Why did nothing happen for thousands of years and then everything happened almost instantaneously? Well, let's go back and talk about it. Really, in reviewing the past, one of the insights we came to understand is the growth of knowledge is what helped humans progress. And we progress at the pace of knowledge. So we look at language, writing, printing presses through history, and each of these things were those big events that changed us. And the scientific method changed the way people thought about the world. And we learned about and developed mathematics, physics, astronomy, geology, chemistry, geometry, biology, etc. And we started building this methodology, this scientific knowledge, this scientific method, and that allowed us to actually have a compounding effect because every time when we would make advances in mathematics, it helped us have advances in physics and astronomy and geology, everything else. They all spurred advances in each of the others when these things happened. So let's continue to pursue this growth of knowledge through history. So the growth of our knowledge, one of the big historic inventions and innovations out there was this steam engine. The steam engine ushered in all kinds of advances from the steamship, which was run by steam engine, to the railroads, which are run by steam engines, to giant printing presses where the daily newspapers could be produced in mass, were started and run on steam engines. That transformed factories. It transformed trading routes where you could pick up supplies and deliver final finished products was dependent upon that steam engine. That changed the world out there. And we looked through 1780 through 1840. And it was a time of the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. And one of the things when we looked at that first Industrial Revolution, it was impactful to us as futurists because when we read about it, we see that the population was concerned. They were concerned that technology would take their jobs. They were concerned that society was being changed, culture was being changed, educational requirements were being changed, our future was being changed. And as humans, that's often not very comfortable. So we see similarities to today. We also look back and see that starting in about 1870, three big technologies were introduced. The internal combustion engine that powered cars, the telephone, and electricity and the light bulb all came around that time. And we look at that, and even today, those three items are driving society today. Automobiles and mobility, telephones, mobile technologies, mobile phones, and electricity and energy storage. All of those things, which kind of kicked off what historians call a very special century, which ran from 1870 to 1970. They said there were more innovations and inventions during that time, that 100-year period of time, than in all of human history. So you're like, wow, what happened in that 100 years that changed the world? And let's take a moment to think about that. In that time period, humans went from riding horses and walking to landing on the moon and back in one advanced human lifespan. That's massively crazy. So the question, and then when we want to take a look at, I mean, we can go to communications. We have radio, television, syndicated news, the telephone, all of that. And then you can continue around that standard of living. That all happened in that 100 years. So the question a lot of people has asked themselves is there potentially an opportunity for another 100-year period which will equally leap forward and advance humanity as happened in that 100-year period? And that's a big question we're going to ponder today and look at. But the thing that we're all asking is how? How could so much advance after thousands and thousands of years? How could so much advance happen in 10 decades, 1 century? So let's take a look at that. First of all, when you look back through history, you see there needed to be this fertile soil that would help with economic growth. There had to be a democratization of science, which means it couldn't just be a small group of rich, wealthy children sent to school. You needed to have a democratized educational system where everybody's brains could be helping. There needed to be networks. What do we mean by networks? Railroad networks, telegraph networks, trading routes, all of these networks that would allow ideas to be shared, as well as to allow products and services to be able to be moved. There needed to be standards. Railroads had to agree on what the track width was going to be so your train could ride on my tracks just as it does your own. There had to be the industrialization. So we had to advance to people started needing mass production of products. Industrialization encouraged people to move to cities close to the factories. And when people left the farms, moved to the cities, they no longer had fruits and vegetables and animals to take care of. So they had to buy it all. And that generated consumerism. So you had industrial revolution, you had educating a workforce that could work in the factories, you had networks that allowed supplies to come in and products to go out, you had consumers and urbanism. All of these things had to be arising so that economic growth could happen. And then everything happened. Scaled utilities, scaled retail, scaled mass markets, scaled banking, scaled manufacturing, scaled investments and investors, scaled supply chains, scaled regulations and certification organizations, scaled sales and marketing, scaled ambitions. When you saw all those networks in place and all those things in place that provided a fertile environment for economic growth, you saw that it's possible to really scale tech products for the first time. And then, of course, over the next 50 years, if you look at 1970 going forward 50 years, you see that we scaled digital and satellites and satellite communications and the internet and everything that goes with internet and mobile networks and everything we have today that we're studying. All of that came in a scaled format. But one of the things we learn when we look back at all those different eras in history is that to thrive in each of those areas, from agrarian to hunter to industrial to informational era to the digital era, each one of those eras took different knowledge, different attitudes, different processes, different values, different ecosystems. And our challenge as futurists, of course, is to try to look ahead, see what's being delivered, built, thought up, invented, innovated, and then say, how are humans going to have to change? How is life styles going to change? How is our culture going to change because of our need to change our mindset to adjust to the new era? Convergent forces. Everything that we're going to talk about today is about convergent forces. What I mean by that is all these influences on history, all of these patterns, all these influences on the future, they're not one thing that changed the world. It's the convergence of many things. Now, I want to show you here on the screen here. I know it's an eye chart. It's really hard to read, but look at the top. This is 1870 to 1970, and it shows many of the biggest changes and inventions happening at the time. And if we go down to the bottom, we see these changes weren't just in technology. These changes were in our understanding of science, geopolitics, economics, societal changes, and technology. And it was not the future. That 100 years was not because one thing happened, but because all of these things happened at the same time. Let me move forward. In one 5 year period of time, which we mentioned already, we had Alexander Bell inventing the telephone. We had the internal combustion engine making it possible for motorized airplanes and cars. We had the electric light bulb and electric grids all in 1875 in a 5 year period. Incredible. We look ahead to another 5 year period of time just a few years later, and we have commercial radios, air conditions. Airplanes were flying with internal combustion engines. Vacuum cleaners were invented. Massive gains in technology that we still use today, which is incredible. Matter of fact, if you look at just a handful of those inventions that happened during that special century, I've highlighted those here, gathered those together, and they are all inventions and they're all standard of living improvements that you have on your mobile phone today. They're there. It's an extension of the convergence that happened over those 100 years. It's still converging. Now mobile technology is taking over as a platform for all those same kinds of inventions. What do we really mean by convergence? A virtuous cycle where events in one domain spur action and innovation in another. It's not just about innovations and inventions, though. As we talked about earlier, each era takes a new mindset, a different mindset. And there's a word called catalyst. And what the word catalyst means is something that changes your views and your perspectives, sometimes forever. In history, we look at times over the last century, World War I, the Great Global Depression, World War II. We look at COVID-19 as a disease that shut down many of our countries. We look at in the United States, a hugely impactful time was 9/11, the terrorist attack on the United States in New York City. All of those things made us change the way we feel, maybe even made us more insecure, looking for more security out there, changing our laws, changing our rules, changing how we look at the world. So catalysts are also an important contributor to social change. And social change impacts all of our future out there. Because you know what? History tells us that humans hate change. We don't like it. We fear change. But we've also seen that even when we know it's in our advantage, that we would be well off to make change, we still don't like to do it. So we have to be dragged kicking and screaming sometimes into the future. Let's go back to this growth of knowledge and continue from 1950. We had computers emerging. We had the internet. We have smartphones. And today, looking forward, again, on the topic of a growth of knowledge, it's all about AI. AI is going to shape our future. Matter of fact, it's crazy to think that as of this year, 2024, generative AI has already reached the intelligence level of a PhD researcher or engineer. Sometimes they can be, I've seen numbers like 97% accurate on intelligence tests, and that's this year. We really believe as futurists at TCS that the latter half of this decade, the next 5 years, are going to change everything about our world, whether we want it to or not. This layer of intelligence and automation that's coming is going to change every aspect of our world. Matter of fact, this was predicted too. This is a quote from 2005, and it's Ray Kurzweil, who's the chief engineer of all of Google. And this is what he said 20 years ago. Based on the current exponential growth of computing power, we'll have the hardware to simulate the human brain by the 2020s. By 2029, we will achieve human level artificial intelligence. That's, folks, we're almost to 2025. That's 4 years from now. He predicted that in 2005. And if I go back again to this chart, it's still accurate. They're predicting we will be there in the next 5 years. So the question we're all pondering is artificial intelligence going to be the next general purpose technology? And what does general purpose technology mean? And what are some examples? Electricity. Electricity is a general purpose technology. We walk into our homes, we plug in the vacuum, we plug in our TV, we plug in all of the appliances in our kitchen. We use electricity generally for everything. Will AI be that next general purpose technology? That's the question. And what if? And you'll hear me ask that question a lot today. What if? The answer is yes. Let me ask it another way and ask you this question. Will artificial intelligence be more profound than fire, than electricity, the internet? Do you think AI will be more profound and important than those? Give me a thumbs up in the reaction at the bottom here on Zoom. Tell me what you think. Do you think? I looked at that for a long time and said, man, I'm not sure. Fire allowed us to eat calories we never could access before. Fire kept us alive in the winter. Will artificial intelligence ultimately be that powerful? And I think the answer may be yes. Let's look at the polls from 2021. We asked that same question. 40% said, yes, I think it'll be that important. 26% said no. And 34% said, I don't know. It's too early. In 2023, the numbers changed a bit. You have 48% saying, yes, AI is going to be more important, or just as probably more important. 27% said no. 25% said it's too early to tell. But you can see a lot of those people that it was too early to tell once now have the answers.
Watch these hands. Not human hands, not traditional robot hands. These belong to figure F02, and what you're about to see will blow your mind. For decades, experts said the same thing. Humanoid robots are a distant dream. Then figure F02 stepped into BMW's factory. This is figure F02, the world's first humanoid robot that doesn't just work, it thinks, it walks, it adapts. But here's where it gets insane. Traditional automotive manufacturing, thousands of workers, countless hours, endless quality checks. But figure F02 just rewrote the rulebook. Watch what happens next. 1,000 perfect placements, every single day. 0 errors, 0 fatigue, 0 compromises.
Zero fatigue? Zero quality problems? Yikes. That is telling us and hinting at what's coming. So AI really does have the potential to be viewed as the most profound invention in human history. And depending on how we navigate it, it could be both good for us or it could be bad for us. What are those opportunities? What are those risks? Well, one of the areas of opportunity, we're really hoping that AI helps us make a quantum leap in being able to help solve some of the biggest challenges humanity faces living on this earth today. We hope that AI will help us achieve fusion energy, clean energy that we could use in abundance, unlimited energy without any carbon footprint. We hope that medical breakthroughs will be happening daily with the use of AI and quantum computing. We hope that cybernetic advancements that introduce different components in our body will help us have healthy life extensions. We hope it'll do that. We hope that robot integration will take away the work we don't want to do and let us do more fulfilling, more satisfactory, and work out there and make our lives better. That's what we hope. But we have to look at a lot of things before we can know if that's actually going to happen. But let's go back to this idea of convergence again. And convergence is a word that hints at this other term called the simultaneous breakthrough. And we really believe we're coming up on, and the world is going to start experiencing this simultaneous breakthrough. And what does that mean for all of us? This convergence accelerates progress by creating among fields such as artificial intelligence and biotechnology and quantum computing and energy and robotics. It's bringing those all together, and advances in one will spur advances in the other. And we see all of these not happening in silos, separate from each other on different developmental timeframes. No, advances in AI give us advances in medical, and advances in AI give us advances in biotechnology. All of this is coming together, and we're expecting simultaneous breakthroughs to be happening all around us. We talked about a special century where there were great inventions. We believe the new era that we're stepping into right now is going to be a period of greater invention, even. And that greater invention is based on a formula you can see from Jamie Metzel in his book, Super Convergence. He has this formula, and he said, this is how you know how invention and innovation is going to change. You look at the total number of people, and that's why we showed those graphics at the beginning of today's presentations, those charts, those graphics, the total number of people times the average level of information and education times or multiplied by the amount of exposure to networks for learning from and sharing from others, multiplied by the capacity of available tools. That will equal the predicted rate of future innovation. Now look at that formula again. You are looking at the total number of people. We don't have a few million. We have 9 billion now. Multiplying 9 billion by the average level of information and education. And now all of us are getting access to generative AI, and it's developing at an astronomical pace. So our information and education is multiplying. Now, the networks for learning and sharing through social media and everything else are growing again at just an incredible pace and expanding rapidly. And then the capacity of available tools. Soon, we're experiencing these massive increases in intelligence already, but soon we'll be at AGI, artificial general intelligence. So using that formula with those numbers, you can see why we think we are at the verge, at the very edge of a second revolution, because inventions will improve. And what's the difference between invention and innovation? Invention is an entirely new thing, not something that you're making iterative improvements to. It's an entirely new product, a new area. So you have new inventions being opened up everywhere. Each invention is then surrounded by innovation, which means it's being personalized and customized for particular processes and use cases. And each one of those add value. And this is something I want to just touch on here. This may, in fact, introduce not only an era of greater invention, but also potentially a scientific revolution 2.0. Because think about this. You can go home and go to bed at night or over the weekend, and all 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, you can have intelligent agents coming up with new hypotheses, then testing those hypotheses, and then adding to a list of potential innovations that could add value to your company or organization. And this can be going on based only, limited only by the computing power you have access to. So the amount of new kinds of inventions that can come out of that can be just amazing. Can you imagine going home for the weekend, coming back, and you have 37,000 brand new innovation or invention ideas on your desk when you come back to work Monday morning? Because all weekend long, your AI agents were developing these hypotheses and testing them. Now, that has the potential to open up all kinds of new possibilities and possibilities for all kinds of things, new kinds of work, new kinds of businesses, new kinds of startups, new kinds of employment opportunities, new areas that you can get educated on. The world can change. The possibilities can be endless because of what's coming. But one of the things that history will always tell you is that every invention and every innovation comes with an accident, a guaranteed accident. Not everything is about enhancing your quality of life. Some inventions may, in fact, diminish your quality of life. We call this a subway map up here on the screen. It's just a visual that shows the green lines are showing you areas where the possibilities could enhance human condition, enhance the quality of life for humans. But the red areas have the potential to diminish or reduce the quality of life for humans. So we look at these things, and we need to look at these things for every invention and say, on the left, those things enhance. The things on the right could diminish our quality of life. So how do we as humans use our agency, our capacity to make sure that we are promoting and enriching and endorsing that which enhances the quality of human life, and then do everything we can to limit, monitor, manage, and reduce that which would diminish humans, and just do our best to do that. And we can look at what we have here. Let's take a look at what are some of the potential enhancements that we're seeing here in humanity. Let's start with health. Just take a look at a few of those. We call this the innovation wheel. And these are innovations and inventions being developed as we speak today. Precision and personalized medicine, biotechnology, synthetic biology, cellular reprogramming, etc. We can continue around this circle, and we can look at other things such as food or homes even. So we look at food, aquaculture, soilless farming, alternative protein, cellular agriculture, precision agriculture, AI and robotic farming and agriculture. All of these things could potentially enhance humanity. Our world of transportation. We look at our homes, where our homes now, we could have 3D printers, we can have solar panels on the roof, we can have Powerwall battery cells in our garage wall, so we can be generating electricity we sell. We can be renting our rooms. We could be soon, when we have autonomous self-driving vehicles, let our vehicles leave the house and go pick up people and deliver them. All of these things turn our home into income sources. Again, potential to enhance humanity. Our homes as energy sources. We look at material science, advances in synthetic biology, transactive energy, energy internet, nuclear fusion. All of these things have the potential to enhance, as do developments in communications and information spaces and our work. We will be impacted by automation, augmented technologies, digital agents, artificial intelligence, autonomous systems, collaborative robots. All of these things have the potential to enhance, as do connected clothing, changes in education. When we look forward at the future and say, wow, the classes being taught today, they're not going to help me in that new world that's coming. I need to rethink this whole curriculum. I may even need to rethink my whole area of study. Not only that, you get an old timer like me, I have to then say, how am I going to stay on top of this stuff? I'm going to have to relearn and unlearn and relearn what I knew, what worked in the 80s and 90s and 2000s. Now I have to find new ways of working, new ways of addressing, new ways of communicating. So I have to go back and get reskilled. Material science. Oftentimes we look at material science as being critical to human advancement. Think of the Bronze Age. It was called the Bronze Age in history. Why? Because material sciences gave them new kinds of metal, which changed the direction of history. So let's just grab 3 of these areas. And guess what? They're those same areas we talked about before. We look at the societal platforms of energy, transportation, and communications. That internal combustion engine, that electric light bulb, and that first telephone. Those things are still driving our advancements today, these societal platforms that point to the future. What we have here, if you really want to know what a futurist like me does all day, we stare at this kind of thing. And this chart is called a convergence model. And there's domains at the top: science and technology, societal, geopolitical, economic, and various scenarios. These are close to 400 trends that we believe are some of the biggest that are going to shape the direction of our future going forward. And let's just take a look at these in the context of some areas that are important to all of us. So let's go to the societal ones and take a look at this. So we just reached in there, pulled off the shelf 4 of the 400 we had there. A fall in working age population. We see that in the data. There are fewer. The working age population is going down, down, down in most parts of the world. There's fewer people working. That's going to mess up social networks, taxation programs in countries. Is going to put additional expenses for elder care for all societies impacted by that. We look at some more data: decline in fertility rates. In most regions of the world, we're not even replacing ourselves. If there's 2 of you in a family, you need 2.1, I think, to replace yourself on average. We're at 1.6 in the US. We're not replacing ourselves. In all those deep blue areas, we're not replacing ourselves anymore. So that's going to change the whole shape of our future out there. We look at others out there. Oh, I skipped ahead. This one here, for the first time in human history, starting in 2018, there were more people alive over the age of 65 than under the age of 5. Never before in human history has that been the case. So we're all going, okay, what's this going to do for us in 50 years? It's going to change our world. We look at the millennia, we look at the different generations out there. We look at the very bottom, the silent generation, the boomers. All that group are retiring now. And that group is the wealthiest group ever. And we look at that, that group today has over 84 trillion in US dollars, that group. And they're at the end of their life period. They're going to be passing away. What's going to happen to that 84 trillion is a big question. Will it be something passed on to future generations that think different, that have different mindsets, or will it be required just to support this changing dynamic? Because if you look at the top layer, you have traditional life cycles. There were 4 of them. You were young, you got married, you worked without kids, and then you retired. But that's changed. You now have 5 segments out there. Young, single for a long time, you get married, maybe, you have children, maybe, but you find out that your parents and your great-grandparents are still alive because they have life extensions through technology. So somebody's going to have to care for all these new generations that are still with us. So the question is, does that 84 trillion go for that care and doesn't get passed down, or does it get passed down? Big questions that we all have to think about here. Let's take a look at another one. Let's look at smart cities. Smart cities, I took that big convergence model, I highlighted the areas that are likely to really impact smart cities, and then we grab a few of them here. Digital twins. Digital twins mean you have sensors and cameras and electronics on all the different bridges and roads and traffic lights and everything, so you can help manage and optimize a city environment. Your parking spaces are part of digital twins. So when they're empty, they show up on your mobile phone that they're empty. All of that is a digital twin. We look at focus on purpose. Smart cities would look at this and they would say, we want to change according to population growth. We want to improve and reduce levels of poverty. We want connected health. We want to care for our elderly. We want to care, excuse me, we just want to have our act together. We want to look ahead at food, water insecurity. What can we do about it? Can we desalinate ocean water? Can we create more proteins through precision fermentation? What can we do as a smart city to perhaps even encourage robotic farming so we have fruits and vegetables grown in the middle of our cities instead of long distances, so we can be more efficient and have a reduced carbon footprint? We look at sustainability. We ask ourselves, what can we do to change the way we do things with our roads, with our cars, with our mass transit systems, with our forests, all of these things? What can we do to improve that?
Keeping trash out of sight. An automatic waste collection system specifically designed for subterranean conveyance of solid municipal waste. Marimatic Metrotafin area waste collection system brings the municipal solid waste collection to smart city standards. It uses vacuum to transport waste and raw materials through an underground pipe network into containers at centralized waste transfer terminal.
That's just one example. And one of the patterns that we're seeing about the future is that, especially with smart cities, is that they're becoming multi-dimensional. Instead of being two-dimensional where you have the ground level and buildings and roads all over the ground, so you have packed people, packed buildings, packed cars, all sharing the ground, you're seeing so many of the infrastructure looking to go deeper underground in the way they develop things. Let's take a look at this.
China's developing its urban underground logistics system in Beijing and Shanghai. They use automated guided vehicles and
hydrogen-powered container capable of operating fully autonomously. With the number of intelligently packaged hydrogen tanks tailored to the journey profile, the flexible and efficient trailer drone ensures more than 1,000 kilometers of sufficient range from a single charge. Sensors on board the trailer can detect other objects and avoid collisions. It also has an impressive turning circle, meaning it can move autonomously through port-side operations and tight urban environments. Emergency brakes combine with the sensors to stop suddenly if needed. And once the trailer drone arrives at its destination, an automatic system streamlines the unloading process. And in a matter of minutes, the drone is ready to be loaded up again and sent on its way.
That's one example. Let me see.
China is developing an urban
Here's another.
underground logistics system in Beijing and Shanghai that uses automated guided vehicles and conveyor belts to transfer goods with the help of a broad underground tunnel network to maintain logistics efficiency and reduce surface traffic congestion over the upcoming years. Similarly, Switzerland's cargo SUS train will create a 310-mile network of underground tunnels for cargo transport, even in smaller tunnels, to connect all major cities, including Zurich, Basel, and Geneva, in the coming years. At the same time, the Netherlands will direct the underground freight transport system with an ultimate focus on large diameter tunnels in connection with the urban-based linkages with the help of conveyor belts and AGVs in the future. However, Japan is different, inclined toward a single critical corridor.
Now, let's talk about that. Again, in all of those major regions, when they're looking at smart cities, the word keeps coming up, tunnels, underground. So then you're looking at multiple dimensions. You're not just all ground level. There's so much they're looking to implement underground. And for those of you that follow Elon Musk, he has his Bohr company, which saw that a decade ago, the importance of creating underground logistics systems and transportation systems. You hear another word in the context of smart cities a lot, conveyor belts. So you're not just moving trucks or vehicles or trains, you're moving packages on conveyor belt. Japan wants to run a conveyor belt down the middle of their major highways and freeways. So they want a conveyor belt down the middle of the street running packages. You see Switzerland, 3 different levels of underground tunnel systems, over 300 kilometers worth, that have conveyor systems and transportation moving things around. That's another pattern that we're seeing out there in the future. Let's take a look at artificial intelligence. Again, we're looking at 400 different trends under the domains of science and technology, societal, geopolitical, and economic. I have highlighted some of these areas here out of the 400 that AI is likely to have some real significant impact on.
Hey, figure one, what do you see right now?
I see on a plate in the center of the table, a drying rack with cups and a plate, and you standing nearby with your hand on the table.
Great, can I have something to eat?
Sure thing.
Great. Can you explain why you did what you just did while you pick up this trash?
On it. So I gave you the apple because it's the only edible item I could provide you with from the table.
Great. So based on the scene right now, where do you think the dishes in front of you go next?
The dishes on the table, like that plate and cup, are likely to go into the drying rack next.
Great. Can you put them there?
Of course.
You know, we looked at an example earlier where you had version 2 of that robot working in the BMW factory. We saw that earlier in the presentation. Now, in that environment, you can give it rules, right? Here's the part. Here's what we need you to do with the part. Just follow the rules and you'll have 0 quality defects. In this case, this is giving you a different perspective. This is a robot that is thinking in an unstructured environment and understanding the context of the question and the context of the environment. And this starts blowing your mind and expanding your brain. What is totally possible when the robot knows its purpose? Your purpose is to optimize something. Your purpose is to treat humans well. Your purpose is to keep something secure and safe. So in this area, again, we look at 400 different trends. We pull off the shelf 6 of them here. We look at robotics, then the developments with AI and what they can do for unstructured environments. Digital twins, which allow you to have 3D perspectives of all your internal organs and be able to monitor that, as well as monitor a smart city with sensors. You have autonomous mobility. You have mass scale disinformation. On this note, this is the diminishing side where it's not good for humanity, but will come along with the part of artificial intelligence that will enhance our life. Potential job loss, again, a negative, a diminishing of human quality. But then there's the opportunity for next generation education. I think it's good here just to pause for a moment and say, there's a professor, and this professor's name is Dr. Paul Virilio. He taught in Paris, France. One of the quotes that he often used, he said, all invention, again, comes with an accident. So let's talk about that. You invent an airplane, a motorized airplane. Well, you invented the airplane, but you also invented the airplane wreck, the crash, the accident. You can't create an invention without creating the accident. You create a steam engine train. You create a steam engine train that goes off the tracks and hurts people. You create a boat with a steam engine. So you create a steamship, a boat that floats. You've also created a boat that sinks. So again, our responsibility as humans is then to do everything we can to help that which is good and diminish, restrict, reduce, manage, and monitor that which is bad. So we have human agency, and that's what all of our job is. So when we look at the future, what do we have to ask ourselves? We have to ask ourselves, according to Amy Webb, a futurist that is a brilliant futurist that I read her books and follow. She says it's so much better to ask what if questions today so we can avoid asking what now questions in the future. Like, what if this happened? What if this happened? What if this happened? Well, that allows us to prepare. And so we don't go in unexpected and say, what now? So let's ask some of those questions right now. What if an AI-powered automated society allowed us as humans to return to hunting, hiking, gathering, and gardening? What if? What if AI-powered social media changes the way we think about everything? Well, that's a bad side, but we need to be thinking about that what if question. What if all accumulated global knowledge was available free to all? What if all knowledge could be downloaded and instantly available inside our own human brains? What if access to so much knowledge and creativity made humans stop getting educated? What if AI becomes so good at decision making that humans stop making important decisions? What if the lessons learned throughout history are never again forgotten? What if? What if artificial intelligence introduces more problems than it actually solves. Another important question to ask so we can get prepared. Let's look at another area, the future of air travel. This is a spaceport, an example, an illustration of a spaceport. And we might look at that and say that's so far away, but is it? Is it really so far away? This is one company. This is SpaceX, one location for one company in one country. Look at the bottom left. You see the dates. These are the dates when rockets were launched. So 2013, some months, no rockets were launched. Others, multiple rockets. We moved to 2014. The pace starts to increase. We look at 2015. There's a break. And then there's rockets start being launched everywhere. And then one blows up. Uh-oh. They add an additional launch pad in the distance. They train rockets to be able to return and be reused. This is 2018. 2019. Look at the pace of the rockets being launched from the spaceport. 2020. It's easy to miss in the news that so many launches are happening every week, every month, every year. Today, the amount of rockets being sent up is amazing. So this illustration, once you see how many rockets are being launched in space already, is not too distant in the future for something like this. But let's go back and take a look at this future of air travel. We see some of the major changes off this list of 400. They're there already. Aerial ride sharing, like an Uber in the sky, hypersonic, supersonic flight, flying cars, flying passenger drones, digital agents and robotics and Internet of Things. You have climate change impacting the future of travel, resource scarcity, aging population. If so many people are elderly, what's that mean for airline travel? Do you change the way you board a plane? Do you change the way you handle luggage? Do more people want to see the world through virtual lenses, virtual glasses, virtual headsets? All of these things can change the future of air travel. We look at one more, health and wellness, digital twins, synthetic biology, AI-enabled drug discovery, healthy life extensions, caring for the elderly, shifting economic systems. And here we are to another set of what if questions as a result of those. What if we had healthy life extensions and lived to 120 years old? What if we could spend weekends floating in an orbiting hotel high above the earth? What if most people had a digital assistant and a personal robot? What if we send our trained robots to work each day and we receive their paychecks? What if some of our closest friends are robots? What if our personal robots are farmers and they grow all of our favorite food? What if? Now, we talked about the great inventions of 1870 to 1970. And what drove that? Industry drove that. This is a list of vertical siloed industries. You have an automotive industry, and the automotive industry produced automobiles. But that's not going to be the way the world works in the future. The world is moving to a different paradigm, an ecosystem-based world. If you look at this diagram, you see in the middle purpose. Around the edges, you see the ecosystems named that are most important to humans, the resources they live on, their personal growth. their health and wellness, their communities, what they do in their spare time and leisure time, what they can make and create and invent. Mobility, how do you move people and things to different places? Means, how do you bring in food and money, spaces, your communities, your homes, all of these things. Ecosystems connected in digital environments are changing the world. Ecosystems for smart cities, we'll get there in a moment. You have a purpose and somebody in the middle that orchestrates value producers and value consumers. And you have examples like on the left, your educational services, healthcare, public safety, smart transportation. Those are producers. On the right, you have different things, consumers. For looking at community and spaces in your ecosystems, you have these participants, the citizens, residents, consumers in the middle. You have core participants, enabling participants, and governance organizations. And around each of those, you have these ecosystems of companies, of people, of products, of services, of technologies, of regulations, all of these things. So on the left, when we're looking at spaces, the places we live, work, consume food, we can look at the top and we can look at things like building materials, smart homes, 3D printed homes, construction equipment, home builders, construction employees. We can look at a different group, your in-home water, recycling, waste management, virtual parks, emergency services, surveillance, your park systems. We can look at the right and we can see public transportation, autonomous mobility, mobility as a service, charging stations, all of these things. At the bottom, you look at the places people spend their time, churches and cathedrals, community organizations, cultural and artistic organizations and destinations, smart retail, all of these things, those are ecosystems that represent just a small part of smart cities. On the right, you now have the domains of where you're seeing future trends. So all of those domains and the future trends coming will impact that ecosystem. On the left, you then see those macro ecosystems that are designed to help enhance the standard of living and quality of life of humanity. These are the participants in the ecosystems that support smart cities. Let's take a look at one other aspect, the value exchanges that happen within those ecosystems. On the bottom right, the green dotted lines are goods and services. Red is the direction money is flowing. The blue, where does information sharing happen? And what are the intangible, the information and the intangible value created through these ecosystems? Now, what's really important as we look at these different things and we look at how smart cities are developed and how they mature and how they're formed, underlying these ecosystems are digital platforms that connect all of these participants together so the information can be shared, so money can move from one to the other, so orders and customer satisfaction, customer service, products can be ordered, services performed, all through these digital platforms. The same kinds of groups of participants for smart cities, but we can explode this out. And I can just zero in a little bit more on the ecosystems that we're all looking at here. These are the participants to smart cities. Understanding, again, what are the influences? How are these connected? What new kinds of value can be offered if you connect these different products and services together in a way that's purposeful, purpose-focused to help improve the satisfaction, the quality of life, and the standard of living of your residents, of your cities out there. And it's being influenced continually, as were the other ones, by developments within what humans want out of their life and out of their macro ecosystems that give them happiness and satisfaction, and how they're influenced and impacted by the technologies out there. Now, we're going to take a moment to look at a video that puts some of this into context, talking about what it means to have new kinds of economic value created because of digital platforms and how it can change the outlook for smart cities.
This could be the factory of the future. Actually, this could be several factories of the future.
We have automotive parts manufactured in the morning and then aerospace parts manufactured in the afternoon.
This is called roboforming. It's a new way of shaping metal by using robots and artificial intelligence.
Ultimately, I think what our team is excited about is what we call democratization of manufacturing. Get this in the hands of the people who couldn't make these parts possible without joining like somebody like a SpaceX or Honda's of the world. Can we enable those guys? Because those are the guys who are going to have the next generation of big ideas that we want to look into and we hopefully make. Those tools are going to be very crucial and will change the landscape. I imagine a world where in the future, you as a designer, you can go onto a portal, upload your design, get guided through how you can manufacture it in the most efficient way, submit and say, okay, I want 20 of these in 20 days in Los Angeles, California, and the right facility. It doesn't look like traditional factories. It more looks like data centers that has a bunch of these robotic systems that can be programmed to do multiple operations. I think that would be the ultimate vision where I think manufacturing needs to go.
But manufacturing this way is about more than just speed and cost. It's also about proximity. Roboforming factories are smaller and more adaptable, and that could change where we build them.
If you go to Midwest, there are areas where we had large manufacturing plants, manufacturing a certain type of the car. Once that car was obsolete, that whole economy around that whole town died because that factory could not easily be retooled. It was cheaper to just let it go and go start somewhere else from scratch. But once we move to this new paradigm where you can configure the factory to do different things, you can distribute it, one thing, it can be very closer to the consumers because it can be very adaptable. You're gonna have much more stable communities. They got to manufacture the things they need very close to where they live, and they can constantly be adaptable to changes and needs in those communities.
So the world is full of uncertainty. All these changes, whether they be ecosystems forming around different industries and different products in different smart cities, to the complexity of looking at all the different scenarios in which different trends can converge together, each of them spurring different changes and advancements in others. You have that simultaneous innovation. You have convergence of trends. All of this creates a world of uncertainty. So what do companies do? What is that advice that us at TCS can give people? Well, there's a lot of it. But one of the key ones is that companies, all of us, individuals, companies, organizations, need to be living with a sense and respond. We can't predict all these different changes that can happen with all the different combinations. But we can create a proactive strategy that employs simulation and scenario planning to anticipate these possibilities and swiftly implement the appropriate responses out there. So we need to be setting up systems of sensing what is changing, sensing how people are changing what they ask for, our citizens, where there's problems, where things work, where things don't work. When a new invention is creating is diminishing our life more than it's enhancing our life, we need to change that around. We need to be doing scenario planning at all times. With that out there, I'm going to wrap up with a riddle. Why did the clock repairman climb a ladder? Because his time was up, and so is mine. I'll turn it back over to you guys. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Kevin. Thank you so much, Kevin, for your presentation time, all that knowledge. En español, en este caso, no sé si algún participante en particular quisiera hacerle alguna consulta a Kevin directamente en inglés. Podemos darle la palabra a alguna persona. O también la puede escribir en el chat si es que lo desea. Puede levantar la mano.
Sí, en inglés o en español y la traducimos. Si alguien quiere preguntar en español también está bien.
Any question
Are you
for the Q?
are you asking for questions? Is that where we're
Yeah,
at?
yeah, we're doing the Q&A session, Kevin. I have one if you want. Yeah, with all that knowledge and information in TCS, what do you think are the principal barriers preventing widespread smart city implementation in our countries as of developing countries in Chile, as Chile?
Wow. Well, often the feedback we get from a presentation like this is it just blew my mind. You know, there's so many new ideas and concepts. And it's really creating an environment where we are all sharing these same concepts, these same possibilities, these same opportunities to enhance life. If we're sharing that information, if we've democratized that vision of a smart city, it makes the rest so much easier because we're all pulling in the same direction to accomplish the same purposes, and we can be focused and we understand what is possible. If our constituency, our ecosystem does not share these visions, does not understand these possibilities, it makes it so difficult to make significant progress. So I think just a shared vision among everyone is the key.
Thanks, Kevin. No sé si tenemos alguna otra pregunta de la audiencia. Nuevamente, cualquiera puede preguntar algo, si lo desean. Si no, también tenemos muchas preguntas aquí en la sesión.
Yo aprovecho y hago una pregunta primero la hago en español y después, entonces si no la digo en inglés, pero si bien pensando que la colaboración es clave, igual que como cuál sería un ejemplo de país o de geografía de ciudad donde esto está sucediendo de forma más avanzada, más desarrollada, dónde debemos mirar, ¿no? So Kevin, which is a city or a country that you would say it's working in this collaborative model and could be an example when we think of smart cities?
Oh, yeah. I mean, especially the projects that we're seeing in the Netherlands and Switzerland are some that I watch very carefully. There's also a visionary city being developed in Saudi Arabia called Neom, Neom. Now, there's some diminishing facts about that too, in that there's rumors and there's reports that many people have died making that smart city because of the bad working conditions. So there's a negative to that. They're trying to build the most visionary smart city ever, but the accident that comes with it is a lot of people are dying building it. So that's both good and bad in that. But you look at what Switzerland is doing by, again, going back to that idea of underground logistics networks, underground transportation networks. So on the surface, just imagine if on the surface wasn't congested traffic, but parks and greenery, because where we want humans to live is full of flourishing green gardens and beautiful environments. That's where we want the humans to live. Underground, we can move the infrastructure. Underground, we can do recycling and waste management and utilities and transporting packages, and our food and our businesses can be running underground. So all of these areas, boy, and we see a lot of that again in Europe. Switzerland, they've always been good with tunnels, but there a lot of the future of making that a smart nation is about tunnel systems.
Thanks, Kevin. No sé si alguien más quiere hacer alguna consulta, nuevamente. Puede levantar la mano y hacer la consulta directamente.
Yo voy a aprovechar a compartir el LinkedIn de Kevin, que
Por supuesto.
por si quieren seguirlo ahí y bueno, y seguir leyendo un poco sobre estas cosas.
Kevin, one more question. What are you seeing as the public policy challenges related with smart cities? And in the two questions really, and in the geopolitics, we have China, US, and European Union. So, what are you seeing in the aspects of the smart cities in those three sectors? Plus LATAM, if you want to say something more about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the geopolitical area as well as sustainability and smart cities and all that. One of the challenges from a policy standpoint that will be treated different depending on the culture and political environment of the nation or the region has to do with what it takes to create a smart city is a digital twin. A digital twin where you can be evaluating all of the data about traffic, about garbage, about food coming in, waste going out, security, policing, medical systems. So everything to support a smart city, kind of the word smart city is about putting sensors that give you data. But the more sensors you have on cars, streets, buildings, electrical networks, humans through surveillance cameras, the more powerful and optimized your smart city is, often the less privacy you have. And the more opportunity there is for unwanted surveillance, loss of privacy. So on a policy side, that's a really big debate and a policy issue because we would all like to have smart cities but complete privacy. But it doesn't happen that way. You have to find the balance where you can have visibility to how everything is being run so you can make improvements at the same time honoring the wishes of humans who don't necessarily want to be tracked in everything they do. So you see places like China where they surveil almost everything. It allows them to have the data to create extremely powerful digital twins, but it also gives them control, powerful control over just about every aspect of life. So there's somewhere we have to find that balance between how can we collect and use data to make a better world for humans to live in, while at the same time not overstepping that and becoming an item that diminishes the quality of life for humanity.
Thanks, Kevin. Valentina, creo que tienes una pregunta.
Sí, hola. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for this very interesting presentation that you have given to us. I have two questions. I will try to be precise and concise. It's very interesting what you're saying now about this privacy because everything that we are now committed with, simple things like Instagram or things that are common to our life, you have to sign this contract with indicates you that if you do not agree, you can not have all of these stuff that are given to us.
Right.
But if you don't accept, you immediately get lost and out of everything in technology. So you really cannot choose. You're obligated to accept those policies and contracts. So who is really talking, speaking, or given the rules of all of these things? Because now we all, people, don't have any other alternative but to accept this. So I don't see anyone speaking about, for example, how IA will be like against us in the sense of everyone is unnecessary, for decirlo de alguna manera. And what will happen with the economy of the entire world if everything runs through the IA? I'm very worried about that because everyone is relatively unnecessary in the world. And how are we going to get our, say, paycheck back if we don't work? And other question, absolutely different, is how do you think that architecture will be in the future? Because I think that you're interpreting that everything will still happen in the ground floor, but maybe it will be on the heights or maybe down floor. I don't know. I tend to think that it will be most on the height than on the floor or down floor.
Yeah. So let's go to your first question first. That is absolutely the right question. Why do we have to give up privacy to support this world that's emerging? How can us as humans have our own agency and control the data about us? And here's some of the challenge. Some of the challenges, technology has raced ahead, far ahead of our leaders, our country's leaders, our politicians, our administrators. So technology is so fast and so far advanced that they have to catch up. They have to learn, unlearn, and relearn how the world works so they can go in there with a fresh mind to apply new rules, regulations, and policies that give us those ecosystems that we talked about, the ecosystems that are good for humanity. So we have to, number one, know what we as humans want from our life. We want to then look at our technology and say, is that technology enhancing our desire for life or diminishing our desires? And then we have to go to our political leaders and get them to support what the wishes of humanity are. Again, we all have to know what we're dealing with. And it's so new that it's very confusing for our political leaders to really understand what's happening. So that's one of those educational reskilling our leaders to understand what the options really are and what we can do about it. It's a very, very difficult societal challenge, which is why 2 times in that presentation, we paused and said, what if? Because we need our leaders asking those questions. What if this is our future? What if this is how they take our privacy? What if this actually has some real advantages for us. We need to know how to ask the right questions. So there we go with the privacy issue, hopefully. IT architecture, I mean, if you look at the layers that are required to support this emerging world, you're going to have networks with the internet on it, mobile networks, sensor networks that collect data from everything, your car, your house, your body, everything. Those are the sensors that feed the internet with the data that goes into these databases that can serve and train intelligence, artificial intelligence. Those layers will be the foundational infrastructure layers out there. Cloud environments that handle all of that data, move that data, secure that data, and then that heavy layer of intelligence on top of all of it that you can then optimize your world. Those are the IT architectures and foundations of the future. It all runs through the networks. That creates efficiency, but also risk. Because what happens if your entire world is running on that architecture and a hacker takes it down? A natural disaster, an earthquake takes it down, storm takes it down. Your entire world is down. So that's one of those examples where you have enhancements and diminishing on the quality of life for humanity. But that's kind of, as I see at the highest level anyway, the IT infrastructure layers of the future. Did that answer your question, Valentina? It's more like exposing the questions, not having the answers.
Exactly. We all hope that, but
Yeah.
I don't know if that is going to really happen. I don't think so. So we're in danger.
We're at risk, that's for certain. So we need to be asking those what if questions and doing what we can. But also understanding, like Australia, they just age gated social media. You have to be 16 years old and older to have access to social media without your parents' permission and guidance. And they're doing that to reduce harm to young humans. So that is an example of a society and their leaders recognizing through being reskilled and relearning what the impact is of this new world, and then taking the steps necessary to reduce the negative impact while enhancing the value to humans. So that's one of those examples. Yeah.
Gracias, Valentina, por tus preguntas, dos preguntas en particular. No sé si hay alguien más que desea consultar a Kevin. Diría que no. No sé si María tienes alguna pregunta adicional. Si no, si les parece bien, podemos cerrar la sesión. Ustedes nos dicen.
Sí, no, yo, no tengo otra pregunta, pero aprovecho para ofrecer el canal abierto a través de ustedes, de la Fundación, Ricardo, bueno, o incluso vía LinkedIn con Kevin para que dejemos la conversación ongoing. Y si alguien tiene más ideas, preguntas, consultas, material para compartir, lo podamos dejar como un canal vivo.
Así es, gracias María. Nuevamente, gracias a todos los que pudieron asistir. Hoy día tuvimos una sesión y también en vivo en YouTube, en el canal de la Facultad de Gobierno de la Universidad de Chile, también lo estuvimos publicando en vivo. Pero también agradecer a la facultad, agradecer en particular también a la Facultad de Arquitectura y Urbanismo, al Diplomado de Smart Cities, al Magíster en Gobierno y Gerencia Pública de la Facultad de Gobierno, a TCS, a País Digital, todos los que han hecho posible esta sesión. Y nuevamente esperamos que en el año 2025, después de las festividades, marzo en adelante, cuando ya comience el año escolar acá en Chile, podamos tener también más sesiones sobre el desarrollo tecnológico social del país y del mundo. Así que, nuevamente, muchas gracias por su asistencia. Thanks so much, Kevin, for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Nuevamente, saludos a todos. Buenas tardes.
Bye, gracias a todos.
Chao, chao.
Bye bye.